So you shouldn't feel embarrassed about 8 o'clock in the morning being early. We all know that the Americans go home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as the rest of us continue to slave into the evening. So, but we take the feedback, Maury. Listen, I'm delighted that we are a key sponsor here today. I'm also really very pleased that we managed to pull together the different elements of the church that need to come together to make this work, because this is going to be complicated enough without people going off in different directions. And I think one of the great things about having this session is that we're actually uniting people in a common goal to make this industry a success. Momentum is building, and that's what's going to be needed, because as momentum builds, people get more interested, get excited, and investors start to make some returns, and that fuels the whole machinery. So I stand here. I feel like a bit of a caveman in front of some of the technology people in this audience who are gurus in the space. So you should look upon me as somebody who can provide a toolkit for this industry. I've been running this business for a few years now, and we are committed to the cell therapy industry. One of my main jobs, obviously, is to allocate capital. And I use some elements of this pitch with the GE board because, of course, they look at the revenues we make today from cell therapy and say, well, why are you spending so much money? And the reality is it's because we see such huge potential, and we are so excited about the potential for this technology. So that's what I want to dwell on today a little bit. So that was meant to be a picture of Emily Whitehead. I don't know what's happening with our technology here, but we're missing a picture. I'll go on to this one instead. This is a picture of somebody called Kieran with the Irish spelling. I used to spell my name like that once. He suffered from, he was born with a defective windpipe, and was unable to breathe, and of course was in very poor condition indeed, and from a very early age had to have a metal stent to create a windpipe that was going to work effectively. As tends to happen with these things, it worked for a while. Metal eroded, caused some fragmentation, which led to a problem with his aorta, bleeding in the airways, and led to a very serious condition when he was literally a few years old. Several months of hospitalization, a new stent. You roll the clock forward a few years, you're back into the same problem again, more surgery. And I'm going to come back to this story a little bit later, as I will with Emily Whitehead, because some of the technologies you're going to hear about today have changed these people's lives. They are at the cutting edge of what this technology can do. And I think also you need to bear in mind as to how this industry, in part, is going to evolve, and who actually will do the invention and innovation. Because for sure, problems like this don't get solved by high-throughput screening. This is going to get solved by people really knowing science and being able to apply biology and physics and chemistry in the right place at the right time. And I think that's what's going to be the requirement for this industry to evolve. Why are we so excited for this industry generally? Look, the numbers here and the potential is absolutely huge if we can get it right. By 2030, 13 million people a year are going to die from cancer. 2 million people are going to die from Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Now, that's not the big issue with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, actually, and this is a space where we're fairly heavily involved. You need to think about the cost of care for the number of people by 2030 that will have Alzheimer's. and the loss of productivity that that's going to cause. Because this is one of the most serious problems for the healthcare industry globally. And I can tell you that when you're in countries like Japan, where they have an aging population, the health ministers are preoccupied with this pretty much. And then think about the people who are living with disease. 600 million people with diabetes, 300 people with age-related macular degeneration. Again, a huge cost in terms of treatment, a huge cost in terms of productivity, a huge cost in terms of cost of care. And just imagine the potential if we can tackle some of these problems with RegenMed. And, it's a bit like the story earlier with the trachea. These aren't going to get solved by small molecules. And goodness knows we've seen such amazing growth from the biologics industry. Today, if you think about the impact that monoclonal antibodies have had on the cancer space, it's very interesting. It led to the development of a $130 billion monoclonal antibody industry. In fact, 6 of the top 10 pharmaceuticals that are on sale in the world today, 6 of the top 10 are monoclonal antibodies. So there's no doubt that the adoption of novel technology will happen if it's effective. But for sure, with this industry, if we can start to make it work, there will be significant revenue. Investors will make money. And as I reflect back on I don't want you to look at the detail on this, but traditional pharma was characterized by a couple of key things. Highly centralized R&D systems, by and large, high throughput screening, very centralized supply chain. Big pharmaceutical companies hoovering up small biotechs so that they can get access to technology and taking great control over what's happening. That's going to be different here because, as I said before, high throughput screening isn't going to discover some of the therapies. And so it's going to require the fantastic science that happens in places like here in London, where people who really dig deep into the cause of disease, understand the immunology pathways that can allow us to intervene with things like the T-cell therapy, the CAR technology. And so this is going to require a much more complex ecosystem. And that ecosystem, I think, will demand that we spend a lot more time thinking about how is this going to get applied to the patient? How is this going to work at the bedside? How are we going to manufacture? And how can we ensure that we use the best technologies available to us to deliver standardization and give the regulators comfort that we really know what we're doing in different centers around the world? I think actually a key difference between this and what happened in the evolution of of monoclonal antibodies, if I use that as an example, is, let me tell you, monoclonal antibodies is a Western industry, and this isn't going to be a Western industry. This is actually there are green shoots appearing in all sorts of places all over the world. The Chinese are into this technology in a big way, and the key trick is, how do we ensure that the right controls get applied, and that when people like ourselves, and we're doing this, when we supply tools to the industry in places like China, Asia, Japan, that is done in a way where there is software at play to ensure that we have good controls. And I think this is why the evolution of the accelerators, and especially the cell therapy catapult here in the UK, is so important. And I'm sure Keith will come back to this later. Because what we can't afford to do is suffer this massive loss of innovation in the valley of death, so that people develop a great innovation, but somehow it never sees the light of day because the technologies can't get scaled up quickly enough. Investors lose confidence. We don't have enough control. So I'm a huge admirer of what the Catapult is trying to achieve. And we're big supporters here. Because I think if we work together, and I mean by work together, the companies in the room who are trying to develop technologies, the people from the government who, who need to ensure that initiatives like the Catapult succeed, people like ourselves who can bring great tools to bear, this is going to require great collaboration. Because the killer for this industry is if we don't do things in a way that's going to be uniform. That doesn't mean we do the same thing everywhere, but for any one protocol and any one therapy, if we go to replicate that in a distributed model around the world, there needs to be some degree of repeatability, replicability, standardization that's going to ensure that people have confidence. This is a key point. If we don't have that, we run risk, and I think so. This is why things like the Catapult are very important. I think it's why our role in this industry is extremely important, because we are in a position where we can apply standards and deliver standardization. And part of that is having a really robust supply chain. I would say even in the monoclonal antibody industry today, there is huge need for improvement in supply chain. And I'm going to come back to this a little bit later. I think we've learned an awful lot that we can apply here, because especially a lot of the technologies we're going to apply in this space involve plastic. They're disposable technologies. The technology is kind of new. The componentry is fragmented. And so the supply chain thinking that needs to go behind this is going to have to be very sophisticated. And so that's why we're involved. I think we can bring great experience to bear from our experience in the biologics industry. I think we have learned a lot from our mistakes. We are deeply involved in many aspects of the value chain, from the growth of cells to purification to administration, and we want to build a significant part here so that we have critical mass. I think that's a key element here. And then, as I look at the total corporation, you say, well, GE is a big industrial business. What do we have to bring to this space? There are a couple of things that come to my mind. The first is the industrial internet. So it's estimated that 50 million machines around the world are going to be connected and producing data by 2016. And so what does that mean? It means that machinery is going to have software embedded, producing and analytics, embedded sensing, so that we are able to spot. So for example, today, we can spot problems in a jet engine that's flying at 30,000 feet in the middle of the Atlantic, and actually get a message through to the airline saying, you should take that engine out of commission and put it in for service when you land. There's no problem now, but you're going to have a problem soon. I've never stopped to think what would happen if there were 3 engines with that complaint, but all of us travel enough not to dwell on these matters for too long. But this could be very powerful as I reflect back on what I said earlier about the need for confidence and standardization, because I think remote analytics and good monitoring is going to be absolutely critical to the evolution of this space. And it may allow us to democratize protocols and distribute manufacturing across more centers. And the reason this is important, I think, for the academics in the room is this is the route to allow you to get your protocol established on a global base if we do this properly. And so that's the vision in our minds, that we apply our thinking on industrial internet to make that effective. The second thing is 3D printing. On the right-hand side, that's a picture of a nozzle that's 3D printed that's going into our jet engines today. We can do things with 3D printing that we could never do by any other manufacturing method. And of course, I want to ensure that we use the learning from our modern manufacturing center in the US, that we can apply some of that technology and bring it to bear in this space in many areas like dentistry, or you know, in perhaps in the future in the printing of organs and bone material and so on. Because actually, you know, it's this interface, as I said before, of physics, data, and biology that's going to make a huge difference here, and I believe we have a strong role to play. Now, I'm not going to dwell too long on the numbers here. There's no doubt momentum is building. I think the CAR technology that you'll hear about today in oncology is causing huge excitement, and so people are getting a lot more interested than they were. There's a lot more money being raised, and the business, you know, I can look at numbers like 2.8 billion. I have no idea whether that's right or not. It could be a huge underestimate, actually. But there's one thing for sure, this will be huge. And I think the momentum that's building will mean that the long, slow burn we saw in the evolution of monoclonal antibodies that took actually quite a long time, I don't think you're going to see this here, because I think so many people, including the Catapult type initiative, will speed up the innovation and speed up the evolution of development, so that we're going to, I think this could develop quite rapidly. And I think if I was sitting there as an investor, I would say this is a space where actually we're in at ground level now, and investing now means that there's enormous value can get created very quickly. So I'm nearly finished, but I just wanted to finish by saying this is Kieran, the chap you saw with the defective windpipe at the start of the presentation. This is the impact of these technologies. He went and I think it was in Liverpool, had a transplant from a donor patient. They basically stripped down a donor windpipe, stripped it down so that it was a clean scaffold, implanted it with some of his own stem cells, grew a new windpipe. Similar work has been done in Sweden at the Karolinska, I know. And so that led to the spin out of this new company called Vitalgen, which some of you may have heard of. And so this is the impact of the technology. And this is Emily, that you should have seen earlier and didn't. So at 5 years old, developed acute lymphoblastic leukemia. This is the sort of evolution of the CAR, the T-cell story that you'll hear a lot about today, I'm sure. Now 9 years old, in robust health, 2 years cancer-free. So I think it's a very heartening story. Rather unfairly, I use these pictures with our board, and by the time they stop crying, they've agreed to give me more money. And so the reason I think our legitimacy for being involved in this space is down to, I think, a few key areas. First of all, we have huge global reach. We're part of an organization that has 300,000 people globally. We operate everywhere. We do difficult projects everywhere. That's why we're in the middle of building factories for monoclonal antibodies in China today, using brand new, disposable, prefabricated systems, that nobody's tried before. And so we have the confidence to pull off things that are quite big and new. I think the second piece is we have massive experience from what we've learned from the biologics industry. 90% of the monoclonal antibodies out there in the market today have GE somewhere designed in. I think as a result of all that, we've got heavily engaged with a lot of the initiatives that have been started by governments around the world. It includes California, Canada, Israel, South Australia, and most importantly, the cell therapy catapult here in the UK, where we want to play a role to bring some of our technologies to bear. We understand that if we're going to be part of the ecosystem, we have to plug into some of these initiatives that are going on now. And a lot of people associate us with being a company that can make jet engines and bioprocessing equipment, but we are the 5th biggest software company in the world. We're actually leading the world in terms of the industrial internet. We're forming the standards for the industrial internet by collaborating with companies like Cisco and Intel. And I think we can bring enormous power with a platform where we've developed called Predix, which is going to allow the type of connectivity and analytics and connecting minds and machines that I spoke about earlier. I think we can bring enormous power to this industry if we connect in the right way. And here's the reality. I do think this is a beautiful picture. This is Emily Whitehead, who had the T-cell, the CAR therapy to reverse her leukemia. No one can do this alone. And if you're, I think for the pharma industry, I know the pharma industry is keen on hoovering up technologies and innovation around the world. But this is going to require more than pharma. I think it'll require collaboration with some of the fantastic academics and researchers that are in the audience here today. It'll require collaboration with governments. It'll require the confidence of regulators, and it will require an incredibly sophisticated, novel supply chain with great tools, and that's why we're involved. And I think it will require investors. And so I was tempted to use an expression of a fellow Irishman, Bob Geldof, from 30 years ago about putting your money in, but I won't. This is a very respectable audience. But I think it will require money, and I think what I can say is I think this is a fantastic area in which to invest because it's a revolution, and you're in on the ground floor. So I'm delighted to be here. I want to welcome you all. I think this is a very exciting. I think you're going to have a fantastic day looking at some great companies. And I'd like to thank Maury for the opportunity to give us that you gave GE to be here.
Great, thank you. Do you have time for maybe one question? There's a question.
I'll be circulating, and so Eric Roman, Connor, and some of the rest of the team are here from GE. So feel free to, when you bump into us a coffee, we'll very happy to obviously engage with you all. Thanks a lot, Maury.